Definitely gonna be colder than it was last night, so I'm already feeling it. Yeah, it's colder. Cook our food and hunker down. In this video, I'm gonna go over my complete current winter camping setup. I'll break it down by system, and basically, instead of focusing on specific items, it'll be more the decision process as to why I'm going that route and picking certain options over others. So I'll start with my packing. I use a big ULA catalyst. This is modified. I spoke about it in another video where I've added straps and things like that specifically for winter. Extended the top collar to add extra volume. So I'm guessing it's somewhere between 80 and 90 liter bag. It's a really big bag. I think that's important for the winter that you have all that capacity. For packing, I also bring two really large stuff sacks. One is basically a DCF pack liner, and the other is a 35 liter Silnylon stuff sack. One I put all of my sleeping stuff in, so it sort of stays reserved for sleeping bag and sleeping clothes. And then the other bag is reserved for all my extra clothes, including my large insulation layers. So I want to have a place where I can just shove everything into it. And if I need to take everything out of my bag, it's in a big compartment. I don't want to be fussing around in the winter and taking individual items out and kind of getting scattered and covered in snow and stuff like that. So if I want my cooking system and it happens to be underneath everything, well, I can just pull out that big stuff sack and then get to something else underneath. So that's packing. It comes in at just under 3.5 pounds. Next up is my shelter and sleeping. So shelter, I'm pretty committed to pyramid shelters in the winter, single wall floorless shelters. I've been using them for, this is I think my third season where I've almost been exclusively using that kind of shelter. I've personally never encountered any problems with it. I just think there's huge benefits. This is the MSR Front Range. It comes in at 28 ounces, which is pretty light for basically a fully capable two-person shelter. On my last trip, so the Skokie Loop that I did with Justin, we shared a similar shelter. That's even lighter, 20 ounce Hyperlight Mountain Gear. I think it's the Ultimate 4. Obviously, that's a pretty sort of premium, pricey product. I don't think everyone should go down that route. This shelter is basically identical and weighs 8 ounces more and is less than half the price. So I think it's a really great option. For me, the shelter is a place where you can save a huge amount of weight. Next up is my Thermarest X-Therm Max. This is my second season using the X-Therm. It's the big 77 inches by 25 inches. In terms of a sleeping mat for winter, I'm just getting more and more confident with that mat. So this year I've used it without any foam underneath. Now I still do bring a piece of foam. I'm sitting on it. The X-Therm is warm enough by itself. So I've pushed it down below, probably below -25, and you can literally feel the warmth coming off of it towards you. I bring, I have a video about it. I bring the pump sack, the sort of additional one. It works well. I mean, I'm not going to go into more detail about this, but so either a pump sack or one of those flex tail mini pumps, they both work. That's just my preference. I find the pump sack a lot lighter. And like I said, I have a piece of foam with me, 150 centimeters by 50 centimeters, I think. So kind of a bivy size, but really great to sit on and very light. So it weighs in at 6 ounces, which is pretty minimal and just a lot less bulky than the Thermarest Ridge Rest that I've been using for the previous years. So that's just a little change that I made this year to try and reduce some weight, get my pack more compact. It's also just based on my confidence that's going up with the X-Therm. Next up is my sleeping bag. This is a 3-pound sleeping bag by Marmot. It's called the Lithium. You see it advertised as rated to -20. I'm not sure it's exactly a -20 bag. On the bag itself, it has sort of 3 temperatures marked. One is like -12 Celsius, the other is -18, and the other is -40. And it's kind of, I find that a little bit weird. It works really well down to -15. I'm comfortable with not too many layers on at -15. When you go down to -20, probably -25, like on my last trip, I had to soup that up with all of my insulation layers. I went to bed pretty cold. I'm guessing it was around -25. And then, you know, throughout the night I actually did end up warming up, so probably your metabolism kicks in and body says, you know what, I need to keep this guy warm. A -20 sleeping bag is a very specialty item. Your price is going to be basically dictated by the weight. So this is not a cheap item. I think I paid around $600 or $700 for it a few years ago. That's probably going to be a big barrier for entry for a lot of people to get into winter camping. If you're not doing as much on the traveling side, so the trekking or traveling or ski touring, and it's more camping, you can get a perfectly warm sleeping bag for less money. It's just going to be heavier, it's going to be bulkier. If you're using a Pulk or something like that, that'll be fine. It's just a question of being warm enough. With respect to it being a -20 or whatever rating this sleeping bag is, I'd call it sort of rated to a -20, meaning that -20 is getting to the limit of it. Do you want a -10, -20, -30, or -40 degrees Celsius bag? My approach is to pick a rating that's gonna hit like 75% of the time when I'm out. So it's pretty rare that I'm gonna do a trip that I'm looking at forecasted temperatures below -20. And when they start getting forecasted at below -20, I start to reconsider the trip. That's just me being honest. Do I really wanna be out when they're forecasting -30? If you've ever been out in real -30, that's cold. And you'll see a lot of people doing it, but they'll do things like with hot tents, they'll do things with fires, they'll do things like that. And those just aren't my style of trip. My style of trip is heavy on the travel, heavy on the skiing, the getting from one place to another. Once you get those colder and colder temperatures, you just need more and more gear. And you know, like you don't use the same sleeping bag for -40 as you would for -10. So then you start saying, well, I need multiple winter sleeping bags. This is sort of the middle ground. -20 works well. It's light enough at 3 pounds, and it covers 75% of what I want to do. And it means that if I have a trip that they're forecasting -15, or like the other day they were forecasting below -20 on the second night, I figured, you know what, I could sort of squeeze by with it. So altogether, my sleeping and shelter comes in at 7 pounds, which is not too bad for a very, very warm ground pad, adequate sleeping bag, and a winter capable shelter, and an extra foam pad. So that's 7 pounds. A lot of winter tents alone will come in at 7 pounds. So if you're sort of wondering, like, why is my gear system so heavy, look into your sleeping system. Ask yourself, is it adequate? Do I need to save weight for what I'm doing? Does it really matter? And if it is, well then, you know, there's some options out there that aren't too expensive. For example, the shelter, it's definitely a way to save weight. And you know, it's not a massive investment. It's not thousands of dollars. Sleeping bag's kind of a hard pill to swallow. This year, they're probably $700, $800, $900, $1,000 for a decent winter sleeping bag that's quality and lightweight. How many times a year am I actually going to use it? I also forgot to mention that that as of this year, I've started to bring real snow stakes, so just some MSR snow stakes. You know, they're not light, but they just make things quicker at camp. Next up is cooking and hydration. So I have made a small change to my cooking system, nothing really major, but I've switched pots to this MSR Titan 2-liter kettle just because I got sick of having to deal with pot grippers, so this one has a nice handle. The lid is kind of snug and a little bit finicky, but realistically when I'm melting snow, I kind of just sit the lid on top and it's fine. You want a good, decent size cooking pot to be able to melt snow and, you know, get 2 liters out in one shot to be able to make your meals and also have some water to drink. It just makes things more efficient. I've been using the MSR Whisperlight International for the past 2 years. In the winter, you want something that works. You don't want something that's too fragile or something that you're gonna have trouble lighting. I have no problems priming and lighting a white gas stove, so this is just really reliable, and I see myself using that for a long time. Generally speaking, you know, I just fill up a bottle with fuel, keep the pump in it, and pack it like that. I had, when I started using this stove, noticed that I'd get a little bit more residual fuel left over in the connection between the fuel line and the pump. Now all I do when I'm done using it, I just give it a good shake, and that seems to take care of it. This bottle is equivalent to 2 8-ounce gas canisters. So it holds 20 ounces liquid, but that's 16 ounces by weight of fuel. And from my experience, liquid and canister fuel by weight performs the same way. So this is the equivalent in a pretty small package as 2 8-ounce canisters. I have the 30-ounce bottle, so the 30 fluid ounce bottle, and that's the equivalent of 3 8-ounce canisters. This is enough for me for 2 full days or a 3-day trip with 1 full day and 2 partial days. In terms of water carrying capacity, 2 1-liter bottles, the HDPE Nalgene bottles, some kind of bottle cozy is really critical. So altogether, my cooking and hydration is 2.3 pounds. It's not too bad for what there is there. Up next are my essentials. Basically all go into this bag. It has my Garmin inReach, my first aid kit, fire starting kit, small saw, any small tools, anything like that. I put it into this bag. I've been using this system, this bag for years, just because it's red, so I can see it in my bag all the time, and I also like it because it sits on the ground and I can zip it open and look into it and find things like that, versus let's say a stuff sack that opens from the top, that doesn't really stand up. It's almost like a shave kit kind of bag. Other essentials include things like my shovel. On a ski trip, this would be included in your avalanche gear, but I think in a winter camping trip, shovel, pretty important. Your essentials and your extras that you put in ditty bags and that you just decide last minute to throw something in, they can really add up. Mine come in at 3.3 pounds. That, like, when I see that number, I'm always like, can I like shave this down somehow? And it's tricky because, you know, most of them are pretty essential. And if you break them down by part, it would be hard for me to get, let's say, a smaller first aid kit. It would be hard for me to shave weight off my Garmin inReach satellite messenger. It would be hard for me to shave off weight from different things. Now, depending on the trip, yeah, sometimes there's things that I won't bring. If I'm doing more of an alpine trip, well, there's no real point in bringing a little wood saw. If I'm doing more of a forest trip, that wood saw could pay off big time, and maybe it means that I'm not bringing snow stakes, so there's a weight trade-off there. Look at every item and really ask yourself, do I need this? Am I gonna use it? And if I'm not gonna use it, is it really important for emergencies? You throw in something like a Leatherman, there's a pound. A bigger saw, it'll go from 6 ounces to 12 ounces. And then before you know it, you have 5-10 pounds of little extras. A big thing of rope, do you need that? I don't know. So next up is extra clothes. Extra clothes is probably the place that hurts people the most when it comes to their pack weight in the winter. It's a real challenge to minimize that. My extra clothes is down to almost as minimal as possible, and it's still 5 pounds. I look at that and I go, how can I reduce that? I have my sort of active clothing layers. These are soft shell with a layer of grid fleece under, and that's basically what I wear all the time. I do have a merino t-shirt underneath. That with a warm hat, and then my sort of active gloves. A big puffy jacket is absolutely necessary. This winter I did one trip with this jacket. It's a new jacket that I got from Decathlon, downfill jacket, which was so far really impressive, and the price is just over $200 Canadian. It's hard to beat that. So it was super warm. Really like this jacket, so that's a pound and a half right there. Next up, I always pack some kind of hard shell from Mountain Equipment Co-op here in Canada. I think it weighs just under a pound, so there you're at like 2.5 pounds. And then we get into some things like extra mittens. So these mittens are really warm Primaloft mittens from Marmot. They weigh 8 ounces, so half a pound. And I bring them on all my winter trips, and they're there kind of as an emergency. But you definitely need a pair of thin gloves that you're gonna wear almost all the time, and then some thicker gloves that you have some dexterity but keep you a little bit warmer. I do always pack one other pair of thin fleece gloves. They weigh like 2 ounces, and so I actually have 4 pairs of gloves on me, which might seem kind of crazy, I'm not sure, but gloves are a tricky thing. A warm neck gaiter, a pair of warm wool socks that I change into at the end of the day from my sort of wet and sweaty socks that I was wearing during my walking. Some insulated pants on this trip. First time bringing insulated pants, and those were critical. And some camp booties. It all goes into this big 35-liter Silnylon stuff sack. So that's all my gear. It comes out right at 20 pounds. Now, that does not include my ski gear, my avalanche gear, my camera gear, my packed food, water, and fuel. So that is the camping gear, 20 pounds of camping gear. Depending on your trip, you're gonna adjust those other things. My ski gear and avalanche gear comes out to 17 pounds. Skis, boots, poles, avalanche, beacon, probe, shovel, I already included it. But that's a lot of weight. When it comes down to getting your gear down light, it's pretty important because those other things are gonna be really heavy. You're looking at over 45, 50 pounds once you get all of those things together. You're trying to cover ground. It's a lot of weight in the winter, and the more you can save on your camping gear and your clothes, just overall, the less you're gonna be carrying. If you end up carrying 40 pounds of camping gear, then you add on that ski gear, food, and water, it just gets too much. Basically, what a lot of people will say is when you get to around that 70-pound mark, that's when you start needing a poke. With the weight that I'm carrying here, it's pretty manageable. But if you start to get into some glacier travel and you need some extra safety gear for that, your weight creeps up a little bit more. That's when I'm gonna start to look at other things and go like, oh, maybe I don't need those camp booties, or I don't even have room for them.